The story begins at an office. There's an interview process going on. The interviewee is sitting on a chair, he is wearing a black suit, and he is lost in his thoughts. The interviewer calls out his name. The boy's name is Yu Damdiak. There are 3 people conducting the interview. One of them asks Yu Damdiak how he would purify the water, and he starts smiling and replies that he would use a special purifying machine from the government. The interviewer asked another question about his motive behind applying for their company. The interviewer had a pen and paper in his hands. Yu was in the middle of answering his question, but was interrupted by the interviewer. He told Yu that, looking at his resume, it seemed that he had no talent. The interviewer puts his pen on the table, tells Yu Damdiak to be honest, and asks if he thinks that this is embarrassing. Yu is startled to hear that and says, "Excuse him." The interviewer taps his finger on the table and asks if he has no talent. Then why is he applying to a big corporation like this one? Yu Damdiak asks the interviewer why they put up the help wanted ad. He replies that it is because of the Talentless Discrimination Act, but the reality is different. Yu clenches his fist and thinks again with that damned talent talk. After the existence of dungeons was revealed, hidden abilities within people surfaced. People called this talent, and due to this, civilization developed rapidly. Some called the revelation of talent to be a blessing to humanity, and he believed that as well until he found out that he had no talent. The interviewer tells Yu Damdiak that their company operates for profit. They have no use for talentless people like him. The other one tells Yu Damdiak that even if he is talentless, he should at least have some conscience. Yu sighs and asks if they realize that they are saying something discriminatory against the talentless people. The interviewer asks if they said something wrong and if they are tired of people like him. He asks if Yu Damdiak thinks being talentless is a government job and where he thinks he is to conduct himself poorly. Yu rubs his finger in his ear. All the interviewers are angry as they stand up from their seats. Yu Damdiak asks if expecting proper treatment is conducting himself poorly. Yu Damdiak tells them to apologize for their words right now. The interviewer starts grinning and asks Yu if that shouldn't be the other way around and tells him he wasted their precious time, so he should be apologizing to them. Yu stood up from the chair and said so they're not apologizing. The interviewer told him that he should go first. Yu brings out a recording device and tells them that their entire conversation has been recorded. It was definitely a discriminatory statement against talentless people, and they also admit to posting a false recruitment ad. The interviewer is scared. He starts adjusting his glasses and starts laughing nervously. He tells Yu Damdiak that he was just trying to lighten the mood. Yu starts to leave, but the interviewer starts running after him and tells him to please hold on. They are not saying that they won't apologize. Yu slaps his hand away and tells them that the things they said earlier, let's see if they can say them before the Human Rights Committee. Their color drains from their faces. Yu steps out of the building. He is furious and says that he may not have talent, but he does have swag. A notification appears on his mobile, and the message says that his report to the Human Rights Committee has been submitted. Yu loosens his tie and says that talent is not a blessing to humanity. It is a curse. At the same time, he steps on the bubble gum, starts smashing his foot on the ground, and shouts if one chewed gum, they should wrap it in paper and throw it. Suddenly, his face is splashed with water. A gardener is watering the bushes nearby. He tells Yu that he is sorry. Yu is drenched in water and thinks that he is having the worst day of his life. After some time, Yu reaches home. He sees their urine pouring down from the window, and he says that those drunks have done it again. He starts cleaning the wall. After some time, he sits down and calls his mother and asks if she has eaten lunch and if the hospital food is okay. She tells him that he is going through so much because of her, and if they just get back the money their uncle borrowed. Yu gets mad and tells her mother not to talk about his uncle. His mother tells him that he is still his uncle, so you can't speak to him like that. Yu tells his mother that if that guy was the type to pay it back, then he would have done it already. His uncle probably went abroad. Yu tells his mother that he is not mad and apologizes to her for raising his voice. He tells her not to worry. She knows her son has a good education and standards, does well in society, doesn't worry about the hospital bills, and she should take care of her body. He is doing well. He tells his mother that he will call her some other time and hangs up the call. Yu starts climbing the stairs and brings out a pack of cigarettes. He lights up a cigarette and asks if this is the only thing to cheer him up. At the same time, rain starts pouring down on him, and his cigarette is wet. He furiously looks up at the sky and throws his lighter on the ground. He starts yelling while looking at the sky. He says that he should at least be allowed this much. He has lived a hard life. He starts complaining to God and asks why does he keep hindering him. He punches the ground and shouts that he doesn't want to live like this. This isn't his fault. Someone has to take responsibility. He sees his reflection in the rainwater on the ground. His rage was directed towards God. Suddenly, there is lightning in the sky. Yu gets up and starts cursing while looking at the sky. At the same time, the lightning strikes and hits the boy. Yu looks injured as he falls to the ground. He thinks that he is dying futilely. He wonders what will happen to his mother. He is lying on the ground, drenched in water, and loses consciousness. Yu wakes up the next morning and wonders if he is alive. A screen appears in front of him and he asks what this is. The screen displays a hiring notice and says that the gods are awaiting him. Yu comes back to his room. He is sitting down after changing his clothes, and he has a towel on his head as rainwater pours down his window. Yu wonders if God truly exists. He thinks that after swearing at God, whom he never denied nor accepted the existence of, he got hit by lightning. Yu asks if this is what they call heaven's judgment. He thinks when people get hit by lightning, they mostly just die, but there is not a single scratch on his body, and if he were to look at the differences, he looks exactly the same. The screen with the message is still floating above his head. It looks like the status window that the people with talent see. He wonders if the lightning was perhaps a talent. He says that he should test this. He says that this thing looks like a part-time job notice. Suddenly, the screen grants him access and opens up into multiple screens. Yu starts laughing and says it is indeed a part-time job notice. Even in reality, all he could do was a part-time job, and even right now, it is all about that. Yu sighs and says let's think positively about this. He has nothing to lose anyway, and he will take this as an opportunity. Yu decided to take a look at the screen. It said to load the part-time job list. Yu said it is divided into categories. He clicked on the screen and an error appeared. It said that he lacked divine power. He asked what divine power is, and the screen replied that divine power refers to the energy used by God. Yu says of course he has no such thing. He doesn't even have a talent. He starts pondering and thinks that it doesn't feel like a dangerous thing. This might be his life's turning point. He decides to give it a shot. He thinks that this is something like an app for finding jobs. He clicks on the screen. The option appears with no divine power required. The job is to create a Murgar dungeon. It is part-time work, gathering manpower for creating a dungeon. The screen says that it is urgent. It also has details about the job. The employer is Thor. No divine power is required. The job is for beginners, and it is not hard as long as one can do simple physical work and have passion. Lower class God allowed. Work timing can be discussed. Payment will be 12 Thor for each day. There is an additional message on the screen from the boss. It says that Loki's minions are not allowed. He will break their head if they try to do something. Yu thinks that it says dungeons, but those are full of monsters. He says that dungeons were made by gods and asks if we should believe this screen. He thinks that 12 Thor payments must be the currency of gods. Yu wonders if this can be exchanged for their money. Then Yu thinks that this is the money used by God, so he is sure that it will be worth a lot. He clicks on accept and decides to give it a try. Lightning is coming from the sky while piercing the clouds, and it strikes the tree on the ground. The tree is cut in half, and Yu comes out of the tree while coughing and wondering what just happened. There are large mountains everywhere. Yu says that he has never seen a place like this and wonders if he is dreaming. A monster is lurking behind Yu, and it suddenly pounces upon him. Yu covers his face with an arm to protect himself from the attack, but at the same time, someone grabs the monster by its neck. He tells the monster to be a good boy. He is quite large and muscular. When he looks at Yu, he thinks that he must be the new worker. He tells Yu that his name is Thor, and he is Odin's son and the god of thunder. Yu is shocked to hear that Thor places his hand on Yu's shoulder and says that he is sure that Yu knows him because he is famous. Thor throws the monster far away and grabs Yu with one arm. He picks Yu up and says that he is so light. Thor says that he hopes that he is strong, and he tells Yu that they should talk on their way. Yu thinks that Thor has a massive mustache and that the hammer he is carrying is probably Mjolnir. Yu is shocked and asks if this is for real. Thor tells Yu that judging from his appearance, he must be a god from Asia. Yu wonders if it is normal for him to see him as a god. He sees that there is another god there, and there too, who is using rock like mud. Yu doesn't know what kind of god they are. but they are definitely not human. He thinks that he is the only human there. Yu starts smiling and replies yes, he was just called here from a small mountain. Thor starts laughing and says that he has heard about the god of mountains. He heard that he helps people who are in danger, which is good. He pats Yu on the back. Yu is shaken by it. Judging from his clothes, Thor tells Yu that it feels like he is deeply immersed in human culture. Yu starts laughing and says that he went down there a lot to learn about human needs. Thor says that he must be cherishing these humans a lot, and he asks Yu if he is sure that he can do this. Thor has a wicked grin on his face as he tells Yu that his job is to build a place to make humankind suffer. Yu looks down while laughing. He is nervous but replies yes, of course he can. While climbing the stairs, Thor asks Yu if he has heard about the Minotaurus's maze. Yu replies that he does. Thor says that it will be easy because that's the concept for this dungeon. He shows Yu the dungeon, which looks like a large maze. Thor tells him that he will be building a dungeon with them. Yu is shocked to see the magnitude of the dungeon. After some time, Yu is working in the dungeon, carrying a pickaxe. He sees a large door and says that it is amazing. A worker comes and says, "Hey, newcomer, come quickly. They have a busy task over there." He tells the worker that he is coming. Yu came out of a manhole and went to eat some food when an announcement happened that Sector E1 was requesting assistance. Yu, while eating, said that he was going. While working, a worker tells Yu that he is quite hard working and tells him that he better watch out not to fall into any manholes or some random ditches over there. Yu starts smiling and tells him to save him if he does. After seeing the wooden boxes, a worker says that this might possibly work. Yu asks him if they are done, and he replies yes and tells him good job. Yu starts smiling and says that it is just a simple labor task. The worker tells Yu that it seems to be done here, proceed to the carriage, and take a short break for a while. They are going to use them to arrive at the next place. While sitting in the carriage, the guy asks Yu if all Asian gods are enthusiastic like him. A monster is pulling the carriage, and Yu replies that it would depend on their personality. The worker tells Yu that there are already lots of compliments from several places about him. Yu starts smiling and says that it is embarrassing. Yu thinks that this is him using 200% of his social skills. He thinks that socializing with God here would serve him benefits. The worker tells Yu that they should get down and go by themselves from here. He taps on the monster and says that their meaningful traps would be completely useless if they let this fool do the job. Yu jumps out of the carriage and starts unloading the boxes. The worker yells at Yu and tells him to watch where he steps. Yu is about to step on a sign. The worker tells Yu that this is the sign of a trap and that he must keep an eye on them at all times. He starts pointing at all the traps and asks Yu if it is his first time seeing them while carrying the boxes. He tells Yu that this experience shall serve as a teaching moment for him, as he knows the upper-class senior gods require some tests for humans. Low-class gods like them do not have any place for those, and that forces them to do these things for a living. The dungeons must be built constantly, which creates an infinite workload for them. Yu is shocked to hear that. The worker tells Yu that the room they started building a few minutes ago must be finished by now, so go and take a look. Yu is amazed by that. He says that this scale of a huge stone chamber was built in a few minutes, and it is a lot wider. He wonders what they used to make it this huge. The worker tells Yu to put the box down and says this stuff will make this place worthy of God's test. He opens the box, and Yu sees that there is a rock inside the box. It is covered in spider webs. Yu says that it is a round-shaped rock. He knocks at the rock. The worker tells him that it may look like a simple rock, but spiders will spawn from it. By the time these rocks get spawned, this dungeon would be a pain in the ass for sure. Inside another box, Yu sees that there is a different monster. Yu asks the worker what kind of monster this is, and he replies that it is a lizard man. Yu points at its neck and says this is fascinating. He asks what this transparent part is, and the worker tells Yu to be careful. It hasn't completed its embodiment, and that is its vital spot. Yu starts scratching his head and says that he doesn't know that. They decide to go to the next room. The worker shows Yu that this is a goblin hiding shelter. Humans arriving at this point means they are close to the final destination. Yu says that it is really cold in here. Yu notices a stranger's presence in the dark. A green goblin suddenly jumps and scares Yu. Yu starts screaming as he falls on the ground, and the goblin starts laughing. The worker also starts laughing and tells Yu not to worry. The goblin is just messing around for now, but it is a completely different story when the dungeon is completely built. These guys are intelligent and clever, which makes it hard to confront them. Yu is annoyed. He gets up and says that it is obvious enough that they are clever. They reach the end of the labyrinth, and there is a large gate. The worker tells Yu that this place is for the boss. There is a skull of a monster made at the gate. Thor arrives there. He is smiling and says, "God of the mountain." He has heard a lot of compliments about him. Thor asks Yu how the work is going. Yu bows down and replies, "Good." It is all because of Thor's kindness and consideration. Thor starts smiling while rubbing his chin. He says that a good speaker knows how to make things fancy. The worker shows Thor that they are only left with the last procedure. Thor says that is very good and grabs his hammer. He asks if they should send the lower class off work. Yu is scared after seeing that Thor is going to hit him with the hammer. He tells Thor to wait. Thor says, "Good work, God of Mountains. Give him some advice on Asian concept dungeons by the next time they meet." Thor hits Yu with his hammer. Yu is lying on the floor, covering his head with his hands. He is panting and says that was a wild way of sending people off work. He almost thinks that he was punishing him for lying about being a god. Yu starts smiling and says that all those things were real. It was not a daydream or some stupid delusion, but a real awakening. He has years in his eyes. He gets up and punches the air while saying that he has finally awakened. The screen notifies him that his salary has been paid, and the system asks if he wants to check it. Yu clicks on OK and decides to take a look. The screen starts loading, and Yu asks what all these are. The screen shows many options. The almighty god Odin's spear Gungnir never misses a target. Nemean lion's armor can neutralize all physical damage, and Freya's necklace can travel dimensions. Yu says that this must be the store for God, as the store continues displaying more options. Thor's power of lightning, Hephaestus's power of flame, and Ares' power of destruction. Yu thinks that if he can buy all of these, it would be possible to become a god with the human body. Yu starts smiling and says that his life will start to change from now on. The very next moment, he is sad because the screen is showing an error of insufficient funds. Yu says that the cheapest one is 70,000 Thor, which is quite expensive. He wonders what he can buy with this. Different talents appear on the screen, the talent of swords and the talent of study. Yu is feeling chills all over his body. He grabs his hair and says that they sell talents, then all he has to do is buy this. He is tense as he starts biting his nails. Yu thinks that what is more important is the price. Class talent is selling for 12 Thor, as his eyes pop out to see that. He says that this thing a while ago was 70,000 Thor, but talent is selling only for 12 Thor. The system notifies him that the difference is because no one is going to buy something that mortals use. A god needs power, not something as meaningless as a talent. Yu sighs and says it is because no one buys it. Yu starts shouting at the system that it isn't just a talent, it is an SS class talent. He clicks on the talent of swords. He thinks that he used to like swords a lot when he was a kid, so there is no need to think about it. He clicks on purchase, and the screen says that he has successfully purchased the talent of sword. Yu says that he did so much just to get an F-class talent. He closes his fist and says that he didn't expect to get it that easily. The screen congratulates Yu for successfully purchasing his first item. And another notification appears that today is the special 1+1 event. Yu will get a gift that has the same class as the item he purchased. Yu puts his hand on his mouth. He says with teary eyes that he will get one more SS class. He chooses the talent of combat. Yu is excited as he starts jumping in the air. He says that now he can use both. Suddenly, he starts losing all of his strength and falls to the ground. Yu says that his whole body hurts. The system says strengthening the body to adjust to his talents, increasing the lung capacity, and increasing muscle strength. Yu is losing consciousness and sees that the screen says that he has successfully strengthened his body. Yu loses consciousness and starts dreaming about his mother. She says that she is sorry that he had an incompetent mother and suffered like this. Yu replies that he told her not to say that, it is okay now, he has finally got talent. Yu wakes up drooling over his face, and he is saying talent repeatedly. He sits up and says that his head hurts, and he wonders when he fell asleep. Yu says that he thinks he saw his mother in his dream, and he wonders if all that stuff was a dream. He calls out the status window, and it appears with his name, Yu Dambiak Human, his job title, the lowest class god, and his talents of swords and combat. After seeing his title, Yu sighs because he is relieved and says so that is why he could work in the dungeon. He says that a talentless man like him became a god, and life is really unfair and unexpected. While he is thinking there is a call from his mother, he excitedly picks up the call and tells his mother that he has some good news. She tells him not to come to the hospital today. Yu asks if something happened, and she replies to just listen to her and not come, and he shouldn't worry about her. Yu asks why wouldn't she want him to come. Someone else asks from the other end if this is the guardian of Mrs. Qiao Yu. Yu says yes, that's him. Someone tells Yu that they are in a bad situation. There's a sign of the dungeon near the hospital, and they keep contacting him but can't reach him, so from now on, until the situation gets better, no visitors are allowed. Yu is shocked to hear that. Yu drops his phone and starts running to save his mother. There's a helicopter in the air, and an army has been deployed near the dungeon. A reporter from the news channel is reporting that she has arrived at the scene right now. As they can see, there's a sign of a dungeon on every corner. An army officer shouts with the help of a loudspeaker, saying that this is a restricted area. Everyone, please get back. A taxi is rushing towards the scene. Yu gets out of the car and sees that a lot of people are gathered outside the hospital, and an army officer is shouting instructions at them, standing on a bus. Yu asks what all this is. The status window says that the combat focuses a skill is activated. Yu says that he can see the army officer so clearly now. He hears someone saying that the government is gathering all the hunters in the country. Two army officers are talking to each other at a distance, and one asks the other if he thinks there is an 8-star hunter here. The other one replies that he has heard there is because it is quite a dangerous dungeon this time. You can hear the voices of all the people around him more clearly. He wonders if it is caused by the talents he bought earlier. He thinks this isn't the time to worry about that. He has to get to the hospital. Yu is moving toward the army official on the bus. He tells the officer that his family is in the hospital, so he has to go in. The officer tells him no, there are signs of a maze in this dungeon, and they can't allow him to go in. Yu is shocked to hear that. There is intense lightning in the sky, and suddenly, it strikes the ground. Everyone starts running and screaming. The road is destroyed, and cars are turned upside down. There's dust and smoke everywhere. Yu starts coughing and asks what is going on. He is shocked to see the dungeon in front of him. It is floating in the air, and the bus also starts floating in the air. Yu realizes that it is the dungeon that he built. Yu asks why he is in the dungeon here. He looks down and notices a man coughing. He looks injured, so Yu picks him up by putting his arm around his shoulder and asks if he is okay. The man replies that they should evacuate immediately. Yu suddenly pushes the man away to protect him from an attack. He sees a sword pierced in the car. Yu looks in the direction from where the attack came. A person is standing there with a sword pierced through his body. He tells Yu to run away. The lizard man pulls his sword out of his body and kills him. Then the lizard man puts his foot on the dead and lets out a war cry. Numerous lizard men come out of the dungeon and start attacking the civilians. The army officer shouts that the lizard men have appeared on the front lines and orders his men to commence fire. The soldiers start shooting, and the bullets start flying everywhere. Yu takes cover behind a car and screams that there is a person over here. A lizard man is approaching Yu with a sword in his hand. It throws the sword at Yu. The combat skill is activated, and he easily catches the sword. Yu is shocked to see that he caught the sword. He throws the sword away and grabs his arm. He sees that another lizard man is about to kill the civilian. Yu shouts at him to watch out, but the person can barely move because he's severely injured. Yu tackles the lizard man. The officer shouts at the soldiers to hold their fire. There is a civilian in front of them, and a soldier asks if he is a hunter. Even if he is, he goes in there unarmed. Yu is surrounded by lizard men, and he starts shaking like a leaf. Yu thinks that he rushed in out of anger, but he doesn't know what to do next. A lizard man is about to kill Yu with a swing of his sword, but Yu starts crying and says that he's sorry. At the same time, combat focus talent gets activated. Yu's body moves on its own, and he dodges the attack. Another lizard man attacks from behind, but Yu dodges the attack again. Yu thinks that it feels like he had dozens of cups of coffee. He can clearly see their movements. Yu starts his attack and makes a punch. Suddenly, the talent of combat gets activated. Yu lands numerous punches on the lizard man, and it gets blown away. Yu is surprised to see that it worked. Now he needs to deal with the remaining two. Both the lizard men attack Yu at the same time. He gets down to avoid the attack, swings his foot, and kicks the lizard man in the face. The last one rushed in to kill Yu from behind and attacks at him using a sword, but Yu jumps high in the air and lands a deadly kick on its head and crushes it into the ground. The soldiers are surprised to see that and thinks that it is unbelievable. The officer asks whether that man just defeated lizard men with his bare hands. All the lizard men are defeated and are lying on the ground. A man with silver hair arrives at the scene. He has a scar on his face, and he asks Yu which guild he is from. He is accompanied by numerous made men wearing the robes. They are fighting the remaining lizard men in the background. The man with silver hair tells Yu that he is a new face, but he is pretty good. He tells Yu that his name is Namgongdu UK of the Sangoon Guild, and he is also the master of the guild. He shakes Yu's hand. Namgong says there is no way someone from a guild would have come alone. He asks Yu if he is an unaffiliated hunter. Yu replies that he could say so. Namgong tells Yu that they came to clear this dungeon so he could come with them. Yu is surprised to hear that. He looks at the dungeon and thinks that he is no longer an ordinary person. Monsters will continue to come out if they don't stop them here. He clenches his fist and says, "Let's go." They enter the dungeon and Yu tells them that they should go this way. He thinks that he is glad that he has this place memorized. Of course, that's because he has come in and out hundreds of times. They are waking in a tunnel when suddenly Yu tells Namgong to wait. He asks what is wrong. Yu tells him that from here on out, he will lead the way. The man in the mask is furious as he asks Yu how dare he says, "Mr. Unaffiliated Hunter." He doesn't know where he is from, but here they have an order of an authority. Yu tells them that from here, there are pits and traps, which is why he is saying that. Namgong starts laughing and says thanks for worrying, but their advance party would have already paved the way. Yu picks up a piece of rock and throws it on the ground. It gets crushed by spears. Namgong is shocked to see that. Yu says now they can be certain that their advance party didn't come this way. Yu points his finger at the trap and tells them that this year activates from decompression. The spears are made from special grade alloy, and they will pierce through most pieces of armor like they are styrofoam. It is simple but much more deadly than they think. Namgong asks Yu how he knows all of this. Yu is scared and thinks he tells them that he helped with building this dungeon, but he doesn't think that he will make it out safely. He starts sweating and clears his throat. Yu replies that they can think of it as a business secret. They continue to go deep into the dungeon. Yu grabs the torch from the wall and tells Namgong that it gets more dangerous from here. He tells everyone that they better prepare themselves as they arrive in front of a large door with a spider engraved on it. Namgong and his men are shocked to see it. Everything goes inside the door. There are spiders crawling everywhere. A masked man crushes his spider under his feet and is mad that it splattered all over his foot. His fellow member says at this rate, they will all become barbecued. The masked man asks if he was sleeping during the briefing. These spiders' webs that are all over work as their network and as well as traps, it is easier to just burn them. His fellow whispers that's what you said and asks can they really trust him. He could be a spy from another guild who is trying to interrupt their attacks in this dungeon. Yu tells them that he can hear everything. Yu remembers that it was the room where he put countless boxes that had spider eggs. He knows where all the spiders are hiding, but there's no need for all that work. He will burn them all to crisps. The masked man says they should burn this place up and continue. He is about to burn the web when combat focus skill gets activated and Yu hears a voice from the webs. Someone asks for help and asks if anyone is there. Yu tells the masked man to wait. He doesn't think that they can use the fire because someone's here. Namgong briefs his disciples that inside the stone chamber, signs of people have been discovered. Everyone should prioritize saving the survivors. When they enter from a defensive structure, they don't know what situation the survivors are in, so they are refraining from using the area of effect attacks. Namgong looks at Yu and says he doesn't know what method he is using, but that young man seems to know the locations of the survivors, and the support team will follow his commands. Yu is shocked to hear that and thinks that Namgong wants him to take command when he has never done something like this before. Yu raises his hand to say something, but someone approaches him and says, "Mr. Yu Damdiok, it was thanks to him that they were able to cross the area with the traps unscathed. Please guide them well this time too." The one in the robe shakes Yu's hand. Yu says let's do well together, but to be honest, he gets interrupted again by the person in the robe who tells him not to worry too much. He can just inform them about the location of the survivors, and the rest will be handled by the support team, so it will be much simpler. Yu starts smiling and asks if she could let go of his hand first. She asks Yu if he does not use a weapon, and Yu says that he has never used one before. She tells Yu that it would be wise to carry a sword around and tells him that she will be on her way. Yu starts wondering that he never told her his name. He looks at her, but she already disappeared. Namgung tells everyone that they should get in positions when they enter the gate. Everyone enters the door and sees that there is nothing. A masked man says that it is too quiet, and Namgung tells him to be quiet and be on guard. Yu suddenly shouts that the spiders are above them, and 2 large spiders start attacking everyone from above. The masked man panics and starts shouting that they are so big, and he starts crying for help. Namgung attacks the spider and cuts its leg using his axe. He shouts at his men not to be flustered and follow the plan, get into a defensive structure, and beware of their paralyzing venom. Some of the men start fighting with the spiders while Yu is leading the support team to rescue the survivors. They are covered in webs and are hanging upside down. Everyone starts cutting the webs and pulls the survivors out of the webs while telling them to hang in there. Numerous spiders come there. Everyone asks when they got there. Yu tells them that he knows a safe place and tells them to come this way. Yu is carrying a survivor on his back. Namgung sees that and thinks that he was doubtful at first. He cuts the spider before him in half and says that Yu knows the ways of the dungeon and the structure as well as the location of the survivors. That is something he has never heard or seen before. Yu shouts that there are survivors in that direction as well. A masked man getting a paper yells that injured people over here. Evacuate the survivors outside the dungeon. He reports to the guild master that all the survivors have been saved. They have some injured people, but the damage they received overall is minimal. Namgung says that means they are off to a good start. He says that they will maintain this flow and continue onward with those who can fight, so relay that to everyone and tell them to rest up. He also tells Yu that he would like to have a word with him. Yu is startled to hear that. Masked men are jealous to see that. Namgung tells Yu that with 2 police officers and the rest being hunters, there were a total of term people that were trapped. There was also someone from their advance party. If it weren't for Yu, they might have burned them all. Namgung starts laughing, and Yu also starts laughing and says that it is nothing. Namgung says, by the way, Yu has an amazing talent. It is almost as if he constructed the dungeon himself. Yu nervously starts laughing and says no way, constructing the dungeon himself. It is not like he is a god or anything. Namgung starts laughing and says that he is joking. Yu thinks that he is screwed, and he tells Namgung that they should gather the forces and continue. After some time, they reach the front of another gate, and some symbols are carved on it. The masked man wonders if it is something from the Inca civilization, but Yu corrects him by saying that they are from Goblin civilization. The masked man says that he thought the next enemy was a boss, but it is a mere goblin, which is a bit disappointing. Yu thinks that it is the goblin ambush area. He can't think of a foolproof plan, but with the combat focus, it might be possible. Yu asks everyone that he is sorry, but could he go inside by himself? Everyone is startled to hear that. A masked man pushes Yu aside and says that he is getting full of himself just because the guild master flattered him a bit. If they are talking about goblins, then they have defeated a ton, so don't worry, if he is scared then he can sit this one out. Namgung tells Yu that he also can't feel assured about sending him in by himself. Yu tells him that then he has no choice, but in that case, they will have to listen to his orders when they're inside. Namgung agrees and says it seems like Yu has a plan. A masked man clenches his teeth and thinks that he wants to take this chance to look good to the guild master, but because of some random dude, he can't shine. He can't let him steal his spotlight. He starts grinning and tells his partner to let's go. He steps inside. There's a huge corridor, but it is empty. Yu tells everyone to keep their voices down. He can sense something inside. The masked men ignore his warning and start laughing. He says that it looks like there's nothing here. He asks Yu, is there a cockroach or something? His partner tells Yu that if something happens to be a goblin's, then they will protect him, so he should stay close. Suddenly, the fire is extinguished, and there is darkness inside the corridor. Someone yells to turn on the flashlights, but Yu tells them to wait. They mustn't turn them on. The masked man says that they have to be able to see if they want to fight. He asks how can someone who calls themselves a hunter be this scared of goblins. He brings out his torch and turns it on. He tells Yu that scaredy cats can just sit back. Yu screams that everyone should sit down now. Namgung sits down, but the masked men don't. One of these is carrying the torch, and his partner asks him what he is doing. Let's go in. He turns around, and there are numerous arrows pierced into his chest. In the blink of an eye, his entire body is pierced with arrows, and he falls to the ground. Everyone is shocked to see that. His partner asks where the allies came from, but he doesn't see a thing. Namgung shouts that it is an ambush, and no one should move an inch. He asks you if this is the reason he told them not to turn on their flashlights. Yu replies yes. When they see the light, they attack in that direction. Namgung says that it is strange when they enter, and even now, they must have heard them. He asks Yu why they aren't attacking them, and Yu replies that they are playing with their prey. They want to enjoy the sight of them, fearing within the darkness. A goblin is hiding behind a pillar holding a crossbow. Namgung says even if they know that they won't be able to attack, even if they can't see, even if it means that they have to sustain some damages by turning on their flashlights, Yu interrupts him by saying that he can fight them without seeing. Namgung asks if that is possible. Yu replies yes, leave it to him. Yu starts walking while everyone is sitting on the ground. He tells everyone that he knows they are nervous and can't see anything, and he will do whatever it takes until he says that it is okay, don't move or make a sound. Yu closes his eyes and tells himself to concentrate and remember that feeling again. He activates the combat focus skill, and at the same time, goblins move to attack Yu in the dark. There are some loud noises in the dark. After a while, Yu tells everyone that they can all turn on the lights and move now. The lights turn on, and the goblins are defeated. They are lying on the ground, and their blood is spilled everywhere. Yu is standing there holding a goblin by its neck. He throws the goblin on the ground. The masked guy asks what that guy's talent is and what kind of tricks he used. If he had just a bit more time, he could have handled this, and he asks why Yu keeps blocking his path. Namgung starts laughing and says that it is truly amazing. He has been a hunter his whole life, but he has never seen a hunter fight like him. Yu starts smiling and says that he was just lucky. He thinks that he didn't know that he could fight like this as well. Yu tells them that they should continue. After a while, they arrive at the end of the labyrinth. Namgung says this means the end. Yu tells him, yes, this is the end of the labyrinth, the boss room. Namgung is shocked to see the size of the gate. He says beyond this gate is the boss of this dungeon. They open the door and enter. Namgung says that there's nothing in sight and asks if it could be hiding somewhere. Yu replies no, it is right in front of them. The boss is sitting on a throne. It is quite big and muscular, and it has long horns and red eyes. Namgung says that he is the owner of this dungeon. He feels great pressure and says it is to be expected. He says that he can see from its position that it would not initiate an attack. They have time to strategize and seize the features of this place. The screen pops up in front of you. It says the human sacrifice of the Minotaur has started, with 5 sacrificial candidates. Yu wonders what that is supposed to mean. Namgung tells his men that the combat team will be divided into 2 groups. Yu starts pondering that there might be a hint for a safe walkthrough, and he thinks that sharing this information would be good. Yu tells Namgung that he has something to propose. Namgung tells him that they are discussing a plan, so they should do it after that. Yu says that it might be information related to the solution to this dungeon. Namgung asks if he is sure. They are discussing the plan in the corner. The masked man sees that and is angry at Yu. He says that he can't just sit down here and watch Yu take all the credit this time. He is looking at the boss from behind a pillar and thinks that strategies are for losers. Being so scared and begging for defeat, he will never move as Yu intends him to. He is holding a crossbow in his hands. He thinks that he will show Yu the power of his talent of aim. He just needs to land a single shot, and that promotion will be his. He takes aim and says that a little closer will guarantee him a bullseye. A little more, he takes a step closer to take a better shot at the boss. Yu notices him doing that and tells him to stop. He starts yelling at Yu, saying that he knows Yu just want to take all the credit for himself, but this time the boss will be defeated by him. As soon as he takes one more step towards the boss, the warning appears on the screen. It says that they have trespassed into the boss room of the labyrinth. Random scapegoats will be selected. They suddenly start feeling a strange pressure. The man in the mask falls to the ground, but Namgung steps in front of him and calls him an idiot. He asks him if he even recognizes what he has done, and Yu says that he thinks it's not the time to debate about right or wrong decisions because the boss is standing right in front of them wielding a large axe. The boss starts screaming. The man in the mask is scared. He turns around to run, but is stopped by an invisible wall. He asks what this is and starts screaming to let him out of there. The boss attacks him with his axe, but Namgung saves him. He tells everyone to widen the formation, not panic, and stay calm. Namgung brings out both his axes and says that they must proceed with the strategy using the current head count. He orders them to create the formation while he distracts the boss. Namgung starts rushing towards the boss. It attacks him, but Namgung avoids the attack by jumping in the air and lands an attack on the monster. His men start laughing. One says that the attack went in, as expected of their master, and another one says that huge sound means they might not have a chance to join the battle at all. Yu is surprised to see that. He thinks that was a great hit. The guild master is on a different level. Namgung lands the hit on its chest, but he is shocked to see that there is not a single scratch. He thinks that it feels like he hit steel armor, not some leather skin. Yu shouts at him to watch out. Namgung looks up and sees an incoming attack. He quickly moves and dodges the attack. He says that it is not that the boss couldn't dodge, it was just unnecessary. He puts his hand on his shoulder as he is bleeding. Namgung says that it was just a dab. A careless attack might even kill him. Then he orders his men to deploy an enclosing formation. His men move and surround the boss. Namgung tells them to collect information while avoiding direct engagement and determine its weak points. Yu thinks that Namgung is making decisive and clear decisions. He is surely a veteran when it comes to dealing with dungeons, but it seems to be the best out of anything for now. The boss doesn't even run towards their scattered men, as if distance doesn't even matter. The boss prepares to attack, but Yu feels the energy and says that this is Thor's power. Namgung says that it appears to be preparing for something to disrupt it. Everyone attacks the boss at the same time. Yu shouts at them that it is dangerous. Namgung thinks that he made a wrong decision, and boss is about to attack when suddenly Yu jumps and kicks it in the face. Boss is furious and attacks everyone using its axe. Yu thinks that it is already too late. There's lightning everywhere when the dust settles. A guild member on the other side of the invisible wall sees that their master is down. He is bleeding on the ground. The guild member says that there is no entry to go beyond the boundary shield. Another one says that he has never heard of this kind of gimmick before. They have to provide backup before it's too late. On the other end of the wall, the masked man is trying to escape to their side of the wall. Yu is also lying on the ground and thinks that there is not even a scratch on the boss, even after his best efforts. This shitty life he has been through, expected to be enlightened after obtaining a talent, but it looks like all will end here with his death. Yu's hand touches a sword lying on the ground. He starts smiling and says that there is still something that he hasn't tried yet. He gets up and says that dying like this will surely ruin his rest in peace type of death. Yu grabs the sword and says that he didn't withstand and endure everything just to end up dying here. Yu tells the boss that he is not going to die without struggling, and his sword talent is activated. He says bring it on, crazy cow to the monster standing in front of him. Namgung is bleeding on the ground. He looks up and thinks that his axe couldn't even leave a scratch on that monster. It is not something that can be cut down by someone who recently picked up the sword. He wants to tell you to run away, but the words won't come out of his mouth, so he starts coughing blood. The monster tries to grab Yu, but he instantly moves swiftly past him while swinging his sword. Yu cuts the monster's horn, and it falls to the ground at a distance. Yu thinks that at first it is a gamble, but he feels the moment he holds the sword that he can cut this monster down. He looks at the sword and says let alone wield it. This is his first time seeing a real sword, but he can always feel it acting as a part of his body. He starts smiling and says that this is his talent of swords. The monster is furious. It looks at Yu and leaps toward him to punch him. Yu dodges while leaving several cuts on their arm, and the arm starts bleeding. Namgung is shocked to see that he landed 6 conservative slashes in one stance, or maybe it was 7. He couldn't even follow it with his eyes. It is unbelievable to think he wasn't a martial artist, but a swordsman all along. However, those cuts were too shallow. Yu says that its skin is disgustingly thick. The man in the mask starts panicking and says that it was expected. They were wrong. It is impossible to win with just that level of skill, and they are all going to die here. Namgung thinks that is nonsense. Yu's consecutive attacks just now were on a level comparable to that of the best swordsman of the East. He has got skills, but the problem is that his sword will break soon. Yu sees the sword and says that it is already in this state just because he swung it a few times. At this rate, he can't use it for much longer. He has to slash its vital point at once. Yu starts running towards the boss. It tries to punch Yu again, but he dodges the monster and kicks its arm, but the monster doesn't even budge. Yu throws his sword at the monster, but he avoids it. At the same time, Yu lands a kick on the face, and blood starts coming out of its mouth. Yu grabs the sword in the air and is about to kill the monster, but it attacks him. The attack doesn't hit Yu, and the head of the monster smashes into the ground. Yu lands at a distance and sees that his sword is at its limit. He thinks that martial arts don't even work on it. The next hit will be his last chance if only he could get an opening. The monster gets up and grabs the axe, and lightning starts coming out of the axe. Yu starts smiling and says there is an opening. Namgung says that is the technique it used earlier. He sees that Yu is emitting a strong aura. He is shocked to see that Yu is trying to take the monster head-on. Namgung gets up and says that he has to help Yu somehow. He sees that one of his men is crying on the ground, and he tells him that he has something nice in his robe. This is his chance to shine. Yu says that he needs to strike its vital point at once. Yu and the monster are staring at each other, and they both start running to attack one another. Yu swings his sword with all his might, but the sword breaks into pieces. Yu thinks that it is all over, but the masked man throws a fresh sword towards Yu and shouts at Yu to kill it. Yu grabs it, and as the monster swings the axe, Yu pierces the sword in its stomach. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, there are many people gathered. It has been 5 hours since the monsters stopped coming out of the dungeon. A reporter sees that there are some people coming out of the dungeon. Yu is carrying Namgung and tells him there is a light. They are finally out. Yu asks him how he knows that he will catch that sword thrown from behind his back. Namgung says that he didn't. He just remembered that Yu said he could fight without being able to see. Since that's the case, it would be possible for him to catch something even if he couldn't see it, so he just took a risk. Yu starts smiling and says that it almost turned him into a living skewer, but they all survived thanks to that. Namgung says no, he is the one who saved them. Namgung pushes him ahead and says that people are waiting. As the #1 contributor to clearing this dungeon, he should go make his statement. Yu is surprised to hear that and thinks that he, who has been looked down upon all his life for his lack of talent, that is right, he is no longer who he used to be. Yu punches the air to claim his victory. People are overjoyed to see that. At night, Yu arrives at the hospital to visit his mother. He sees his mother from behind a curtain and says thank heaven that his mom is okay. Yu looks at the TV. It is reporting that they have interviewed the most dedicated contributor to the dungeon, who clearly appears in the center of the city. Yu sees himself on the news. A reporter is asking him to please tell them the procedure and his impression about it. He has cleared the dungeon at a very quick pace. He asks Yu if there was any dangerous situation, and he gets bombarded with questions by the reporters about his name, where he is from, and if it is true that he is skilled in both swordsmanship and fighting. Yu gets nervous and tells them to ask questions one by one. He replies that guild and divisions don't matter. There were several ups and downs, yet he just fought with his life to protect a person he dearly treasures. A reporter asks if he means that divisions and guilds are not necessary. Currently, the attitude of the Hunter Union being a snob has been an argument. A reporter asks if Yu's aim is to criticize the world's Hunter Union. Yu switches the TV off and says that it is embarrassing. He can't watch it anymore. Yu sees his mobile, and there is a picture of him circulating everywhere where he is fighting with the lizard men. The reporter wrote that the new Hunter Yu Damdiak appearing in front of a dungeon has been an issue. On the other hand, Guild Master Namgung and his guild members unanimously said that Yu's skills are unlike anything they have ever seen. His swordsmanship and judgmental skills are unbelievable. Yu says that they even took a shot in the middle of the chaos. These journalists are truly scary. Suddenly, the screen pops up, and it says Yu, the lowest class god, has gained fame, and his divine power has increased to 1000. Yu thinks that it is the qualification written in the job advertisement. The screen says that since he reached 1000 divine powers, he has the opportunity to open a new job advertisement, and it asks if Yu is willing to do so. Yu says that he has to make hay while the sun still shines. He opens it immediately and clicks on proceed. The job title is Hephaestus Forge Security Manager Recruitment. The employer is Hephaestus. The job qualification is the divine power of 1000 or above. The experience required is entry-level caution. There might be some tough body language communication. Yu smiles and says a security manager doesn't seem to be too complicated. Yu stretches and says since he is tired of running too tightly, he wants to go home first and then proceed to the next job. Meanwhile, there's an alert on the screen. It says that the gods are currently applying for this job, and it is Yu's last chance. Yu grabs the screen in panic and says this can't happen to him. This easy peasy job will be his. He quickly clicks on apply. Yu is transferred instantly from the hospital to the job site. Yu is lying on the ground with his hand on his chest. He asks if it can't send people in a nicer way. He wonders if he is in the right place. There is a large ball of fire. Yu asks if this is the Hephaestus forge. Yu starts sweating and says that it is very hot here. It is so hot that it feels like he is in a sauna. Yu says that this Hephaestus guy doesn't even have an air conditioner, and a muscular man with a beard is standing behind Yu. He asks Yu if he is the new applicant. Nice to meet him. He's Hephaestus, the owner of this forge. Yu gets startled and quickly bows down. Yu says it was nice meeting him. His name is Yu, and he is an applicant for the security manager job position. Hephaestus starts laughing and asks if that is like a human way of greeting. Yu is scared and thinks Hephaestus probably heard what he just said. He thinks that he should have buried his head in the ground from the start. Hephaestus is the god of blacksmiths. He tells Yu, as the news says, the god of mountains. His love towards human beings made him fight in Thor's dungeon without fear. No wonder that hot-tempered Thor favors him. He says that Yu has got guts and starts laughing again. Yu starts smiling as he gets up and thanks God that Hephaestus didn't hear him. Hephaestus says that telling him to put an air conditioner in his smithy explains everything. Yu immediately bows down again and apologizes to him. Hephaestus tells Yu enough with the greetings and says let him explain the task. He pulled out a blowhorn from a portal and tells Yu that witnessing is believing, so he has to meet them first. It might be a little loud, so he blows into the horn. Yu covers his ears and starts screaming. Suddenly the dwarves came running and are kneeling down to Hephaestus. They tell Hephaestus that they have arrived. Hephaestus tells them the god who will work as the manager for today is here, giving him a greeting as he puts his hand on Yu's shoulder. They say greetings, dwarves are here, and they are at the manager's service. Yu starts smiling as he thanks them and tells them that he is not used to working in a smithy, but he will try his best. Hephaestus starts laughing and says that there's no need to be that humble. Newbies can also do it well. Yu says it might be easier than he expected then. Hephaestus whispers to Yu that those guys are skilled, but they have some crafty fingers, and attitudes are problematic in a sense, like small dogs and animals are wilder than those huge kinds. It is basically that. Hephaestus says that something gets lost whenever he pays attention to other jobs. The pendant that he prepared for Freya's gift was also gone last week. Yu asks if they even stole Freya's things. Hephaestus puts his hand on his head and says that it what makes it all problematic. Yu looks at the dwarves and thinks that they do not seem to be like that at all. Hephaestus tells Yu that he has to make a one-day leave to climb up to Mount Olympus. He doesn't expect much to happen in just a day, but just in case he will give him this club. Hephaestus reaches into his bag and hands Yu a weapon. The screen says that it is Hercules' club, a cudgel made out of a cut olive tree, a replica of the club used by Hercules to defeat the Nemean lion. It has a great ability from its precision of being identical. Its stats show that it has 10% possibility of applying stun status to all living creatures. Hephaestus opens a portal and says that he will leave now and please take care of his smithy, the god of mountains. Yu tells him to wait. He has never explained what his task would be, just leaving him here with this cudgel. Yu asks what he is supposed to do here. Hephaestus says not to worry, it will all be okay as long as he is stronger than them. They are just a bunch of softies. He says bye then. Hephaestus is gone. Yu is standing there completely clueless, and the dwarf has a hammer in his hand. Yu turns around and says greetings were done, so he will be in their care. Yu thinks that Hephaestus gave him Hercules' club, knowing that this will happen. He tells the dwarves to relax and take it easy. Yu is confident that he just got a cool weapon earlier, so he shows the dwarves his club and tells them that it may hurt. But the dwarves bring out their guns and point them at Yu. Yu is scared to see that, so they knock out Yu. After some time, Yu regains consciousness, and he wonders if he is alive. He sees two dwarves talking to each other. One asks the other what he is holding, to which the other one replies that it is an item made by Hephaestus. He heard that this was a necklace for god Freya, and they will be filthy rich when they sell this properly. Yu gets angry and sees that his hands are tied near a pillar. Two dwarves come near Yu. One says that he woke up earlier than they thought, while the other says it was quite a strong tranquilizer gun. He asks if this idiot is a god. Yu asks them if they are all so fearless, but do they think they will be fine even after doing this to one of the 12 main gods of Olympus in his own smithy? This is their last chance. Release him and end this before things worsen. The dwarves start laughing and ask if Yu thinks that they will get scared if he brings up Hephaestus. If they were scared that easily, then they wouldn't have started this from the beginning. Yu's eyes pop out. A bald dwarf tells them from a distance that they have taken all the things that are worth money, so they should slowly prepare to leave. A dwarf says that he will give Yu one more shot of tranquilizer gun and catch up to the others while Yu is trying to cut the rope using a knife. The dwarf says that he never imagined that they would send such a stupid person as a part-timer. He didn't think that it would be so easy. Yu tells them that they will regret this. A dwarf starts making fun of Yu by copying him, and the other starts laughing and says that he sounds just like Yu. Yu is annoyed. He cuts the ropes, grabs the Hercules club, and beats them with it. Yu ties them with ropes and says this should be fine. They force his hand to